So Scott, I love that you're on the floor there at S4. What have you heard from presenters or, that's really just caught your attention there this year?
Yeah, so I think the couple things that stand out for me that were pretty interesting is one is the acceptance that we need to get a better maturity, the push for higher maturity in OT security. Multiple times we've heard how OT security is 10, 15 years behind what IT and enterprise security has done, and how do we close that gap? So people are finally, I say, acknowledging that gap in maturity is something it's great to see. And then I think the other part about it is getting the tools to play nice together. So if you look at a lot of the things people are doing, they're investing in firewall technology and switching technology and then visibility technology and looking for things that allow them to get that data into other repositories for evaluation. And not to kind of plug like MP. One of the things I love about what they do is they can ingest in data from so many sources and use that to kind of give you a more complete picture. So that's kind of the stuff that we're seeing people are asking for, right? Is how do I take all these tools I've deployed, my firewalls, my routing network, my visibility tools, my vulnerability management stuff. How do I ingest all that traffic into some place that gives me operationalized data, stuff that I can then take action on? And then how do I take that data and how do I model it to where I can now see what changes I'm doing and how they affect potentially my environment? That's really it's a more forward thinking kind of perspective than we've seen in past kind of S4s and past OT conferences.
I love to hear that evolution. Robin, what about you? What's really caught your attention from speakers?
Yeah, no, I agree with Scott. I think there's a common realization industry-wide about where we are, what we have to do. I felt, the years past, we had to get different stakeholders to agree on just the diagnostic, right? And so nowadays it's pretty much clear, like we have to improve visibility, we have to get the basic foundations, the best practices implemented, and we have to break silos. So we have, networking and compliance and leadership to be able to work together. That's for us has been in the DNA of the company. We've always tried to design solutions that can be helpful for both technical and non-technical users to have that common language, accelerating that understanding so that we can make informed decisions. It's great to see the industry embracing that concept now, and I'm excited with what's to come this year.
Awesome, great answers. So Scott, starting with you, what are some of the major challenges for the industry that are really getting attention at S4?
Yeah, so I think the first is compliance. It's surprising how much compliance is becoming a driver for everybody. How do I achieve either the standard or the regulatory bodies today, but also what's happening in a year from now? Can I start preparing for that, right? Knowing that we're not going to see less regulation, we're only going to see more. And what are the things I can do to get ahead of that? I think that's something I thought was pretty interesting. Almost every conversation I've had, it kind of takes off some level of conversation around compliance. And then the second is, are we investing in the right tools, and are we getting the value out of those tools that we expected to get? Because the one thing we see is there's a lot of amazing technologies out there, but are we really applying them in a way that I'm getting the value that they were designed for? And I think that we're seeing this over and over again, this theme of, am I investing my dollars the right way? And it's interesting to see that kind of that thought process, and it's something we've seen overall as a market as well, is how often we're seeing people move from, can you translate my technical risk into business impact? And that's something we're seeing a lot of tools are really trying to translate that, rather than just saying, hey, here's all your CVEs, here's all your known vulnerabilities, here's your bad policies, all these kind of things. Can I translate that into how that impacts me operationally? And that's where we're seeing that next step. And I think it really goes hand in hand with that maturity conversation we're seeing.
Yeah, and great answer. And Robin, what about you? What are some of the challenges that you're seeing and hearing about this year?
Yeah, the visibility of what we have to cover with that technology and with our workforce training, partnering with different stakeholders that we may not have worked with before, and then Scott said it well, in terms of operationalizing those tools or platform that you acquire. They look fancy, they have great concepts, but then when you put them in the field, specifically in an OT environment with different constraints, you have to be work much more than you expect in terms of building the right procedures, training the right people, and then putting that into production. And so on stage yesterday, I saw a great presentation where you see like an asset owner plus a vendor sharing their experience after 12 months of deploying a solution, and then what are the different pitfalls they encountered, what are the surprises, what are the key takeaways that can help the industry at large. And so I think we need more of those presentations where we just clearly state the true cost of implementing those best practices. It's technology is one part, and then you have your work part, but also all the procedures you have to develop.
Right. To really get in what implementation looks like. I think that's really key. And I'm glad they're talking about it there. I saw on the agenda, this was kind of fun. There's a game show plan where panelists are supposed to come up with their favorite OT ICS metric. And I was just kind of wondering, it's always fun to talk about metrics. Scott, do you have a favorite one, or is there a go-to one for you that you?
I mean, being an OT guy, it's unplanned downtime, right? That's the metric everything else is measured by. I think to me, that's all other metrics bow to that in OT, right? What does availability look like? Have we anticipated this downtime? Have we not anticipated that? What did it look like over the last year? Have we tracked and measured it? Have we started modeling what that might look like, right? I think that to me is the metric that ends all other conversations in OT. And this is Scott's 2 cents, so just take it with a grain of salt. But just being an OT guy, that's availability is king. So to me, it's all about, are we measuring our downtime, our impact on the business? I think everything else kind of feeds to that in my world.
Yeah, Robin, did Scott take yours, or do you have a different one?
I agree. Like in terms of OT, Scott, you nailed it. You nailed it. I love. It's difficult to have like one key metric because every organization is slightly different. But I love the metrics that you can drive to zero. That way, you have a dashboard. You can see, all your KPIs, and then everything that's not a zero, there's an issue to fix. So availability, if you can measure that in terms of hours of unavailability, then that's something you want to drive to zero. And then I also love the maturity metrics. We know the journey to go through. How can we measure where we are today, and how can we measure progress, and then celebrating the wins, so that it's exciting for all the stakeholders involved.
Yeah, that maturity conversation is a really good way to get started, in talking to us about your challenges in OT cyber. So I encourage people to learn more about that. So guys, just to wrap up, what's your main takeaway? What are you going to come back, with from S4 this year to your teams, to your customers, that's going to have kind of a lasting impact? Scott, you want to go first, and then Robin?
Yeah. First, so I'm going to kind of pivot off a little bit of what Robin said. One is, I got to, of course, plug, the gray matter maturity model. I think I absolutely think that's the right direction, right? Is, not just worried about what's today's issues and challenges and what my environment risks are today. What are they going to look like in the future? And am I addressing and planning and designing for those in the future? I think that maturity conversation and really using a modeling approach is just absolutely the most important thing you can do. It's a roadmap. It's really telling me, how do I get to the destination I'm choosing to be, right? And I think that, just a completely, my phone's shaking so much because I'm agreeing so wholeheartedly with Robin's kind of statement. So yeah, 100% agree. I think really looking at maturity and thinking through not just what our problems we're solving today, but what does tomorrow look like and the day after, and that future thinking approach to where do we want to be and how do we accomplish it? What capabilities should we have? And are we doing the right things to get those capabilities, right? Are we just spinning our wheels? Are we just doing science projects? Those are kind of things that you really got to look through. That is like, are we really kind of getting the maturity we want? And are we getting the outcomes we expected? And if not, let's evaluate that and let's reiterate and let's improve. And that's what real maturity looks like. And that's something, like I said, I could not agree more with Robin. And I apologize for my phone shaking too much from the nodding of the head, but 100% agree with Robin.
Robin, what about you? What's your takeaway from?
Yeah, so what we said at the beginning around breaking silos, working together. I think that principle applies as well for solution providers and service providers. We see just asset owners being much more interested in getting packaged solutions where you have value across the board. So integration of solutions together, collaboration like the one that we have with Granada and the purpose section. I just love that. I think that's really the key for us to succeed. And that was that event. That event S4 is extremely productive to foster those partnership forward.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for taking time out of your S4 conference to talk with me. I know it's a little bit loud, but they're in Miami Beach, so that's what you expect when you go to Miami Beach. Palm trees. It's a whole scene there. There's 1,000 security experts there, so there's a lot of folks, a lot of conversations. So thank you so much for checking in live from the floor there.
Thank you so